Hashtag the Galactic Empire killed a human boy. Unaware his father was a U.S. Marine. Hashtag first part, the mining colony of Kepler. 442b had always been a quiet place. Humans worked alongside alien species, extracting rare minerals from the planet's crust under the watchful eye of the Galactic Empire. The Empire claimed to protect all species, but everyone knew the truth. They protected their own interests first. Marcus Chun had been working the mines for 3 years now. His weathered hands moved with practiced precision as he operated the extraction equipment. The other miners respected him, though they didn't know much about his past. Marcus preferred it that way. The Empire's databases listed him as a former construction worker from Earth. They had no idea he had spent 15 years as a force reconnaissance Marine. His son Jake was everything to him. The 12-year-old boy had his mother's gentle eyes and Marcus's stubborn determination. Sarah had died in the transport crash that brought them to Kepler, 442b. The Empire had promised safe passage for colonists, but their ships were old and poorly maintained. Marcus had held his wife as she died, whispering promises that he would keep Jake safe. Now Jake spent his days in the colony's small school, learning alongside alien children. The boy had a gift for languages and could speak fluent Zephyrian and basic crystalline. He made friends easily, his laughter echoing through the settlement's narrow streets. Marcus watched from a distance, proud but always alert. Something about the Empire's increased military presence lately made his old instincts scream warnings. The Galactic Empire's 47th Fleet had arrived 2 weeks ago. Their commander, Admiral Vextar, was a hegemony species, tall, gray-skinned beings who considered themselves the rightful rulers of the galaxy. Vextar strutted around the colony like he owned it, which technically he did. The Empire had claimed Kepler, 442b, under their expansion protocols, giving the existing colonists the choice to join or leave. Most stayed. They had nowhere else to go. Jake came running home that evening, his school bag bouncing against his back. His face was flushed with excitement, and Marcus could see something had happened. Dad, you won't believe what happened today. Jake burst through the door of their small prefab home. Marcus set down his coffee, made from synthetic beans that tasted nothing like the real thing. What's got you so worked up, kiddo? There was this new kid at school. Well, not really new. He's been here for months, but he finally talked to me. His name is ZYX, and he's crystalline. His dad works on the Empire's ships, and he told me the most amazing thing. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Crystalline species were known for their loyalty to the Empire, but they were also natural empaths. If a crystalline child was reaching out to Jake, there might be a reason. What did he tell you? Marcus asked, keeping his voice casual. He said his dad heard the officers talking. They're planning something big. Something about clearing protocols and acceptable losses. ZYX didn't understand what it meant, but he seemed scared. Really scared. The coffee cup slipped from Marcus's hand, shattering on the floor. Clearing protocols. He knew exactly what that meant. The Empire was planning to remove the existing population to make room for their own people. And when the Empire talked about acceptable losses, it meant they weren't planning to relocate anyone. Jake, I need you to listen to me very carefully, Marcus said, his voice taking on the tone that had once commanded Marines in combat zones. Tomorrow, I want you to stay close to me. Don't go to school. Don't go anywhere alone. Jake's excitement faded, replaced by confusion. But Dad, why? What's wrong? Just trust me, son. Can you do that? Jake nodded, sensing the seriousness in his father's voice. Marcus pulled his son close, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had failed to protect Sarah, but he would not fail Jake, no matter what it cost him. That night, Marcus lay awake listening to the sounds of the colony. The hum of atmospheric processors, the distant rumble of mining equipment, the soft conversations of neighbors settling in for the night. Normal sounds of a peaceful settlement. But underneath it all, he heard something else. The subtle whine of military vehicles powering up. The measured footsteps of soldiers taking positions. Marcus had heard those sounds before, in places where morning brought death instead of sunrise. He slipped out of bed and moved to the window. In the distance, he could see the lights of the Empire's temporary base. Ships were moving, their running lights cutting through the darkness. Troop transports, by the look of them. Far too many for a routine patrol. Marcus had served in enough conflicts to recognize the signs. The Empire was positioning for a sweep operation. By dawn, they would move through the colony systematically, probably claiming they were conducting a security check. Some colonists would disappear. Others would be found later, victims of tragic accidents or alien wildlife attacks. He thought of Jake sleeping in the next room, trusting his father to keep him safe. The boy had no idea that his bedtime story might be the last normal moment of his childhood. Marcus had seen what happened to children caught in Empire operations. The lucky ones died quickly. His hands moved automatically to the hidden panel behind their small kitchen unit. Inside was a sealed container, one that Empire scanners couldn't penetrate. Marcus pulled out items he had hoped never to need again. His old military identification tags, encrypted with access codes that might still work. A small pistol, human-made and unregistered. And a photograph of his old unit, taken on some forgotten world where they had fought impossible odds and won. Marcus wasn't just a former Marine. He was Force Recon, the elite of the elite. He had spent 15 years learning how to kill efficiently and quietly. The Empire's databases listed him as dead, killed in the same transport crash that took his wife. Marcus Chun, the construction worker, had no military record, no combat training, no reason for the Empire to consider him a threat. That had been his greatest protection and his heaviest burden. Living as a dead man, hiding his skills while watching injustices he was trained to stop. But now the Empire had made a critical mistake. They were threatening his son. Marcus checked his chronometer. 4 hours until dawn. 4 hours to prepare for a war only he knew was coming. He thought of his old commanding officer's words. A Marine's greatest weapon isn't his rifle or his training. It's his willingness to do whatever it takes to complete the mission. His mission now was simple: keep Jake alive. Everything else was secondary. The Empire was about to learn why humans had earned their fearsome reputation in every war they'd ever fought. They were about to discover what happened when you threatened a Marine's family. And they were about to understand why the phrase acceptable losses should never include human children. Marcus began a plan. By morning, the Galactic Empire would face an enemy they had never encountered before, a father with nothing left to lose and all the skills necessary to make them pay for their arrogance. The colony slept on, unaware that their quiet mining settlement was about to become a battlefield. In a few hours, the Empire would begin their clearing operation, confident in their superior numbers and technology. They had no idea that among the simple colonists they planned to eliminate was a ghost from Earth's military past, a man trained in the art of asymmetric warfare. The Empire had killed Marcus Chun once before, in their records at least. Soon, they would learn the difference between bureaucratic death and the real thing. And they would discover why Marines never truly die. They just go to ground and wait for the right moment to remind the galaxy what happens when humanity is pushed too far. Jake slept peacefully in his bed, unaware that his father was transforming back into the weapon he had once been. Tomorrow would bring violence and horror, but it would also bring something the Empire had never faced: a human parent fighting not just for survival, but for vengeance. The last quiet night on Kepler 442b was ending. When dawn came, the galaxy would remember why humanity had never been conquered, and why threatening their children was the last mistake an enemy ever made. Hashtag the Galactic Empire killed a human boy. Unaware his father was a U.S. Marine. Hashtag second part. Dawn came with a rumble of Imperial hover tanks. Marcus was already dressed and armed, his old combat instincts fully awakened after 3 years of dormancy. He had spent the remaining hours of darkness preparing, turning their simple home into a tactical position. The furniture was rearranged to create cover points and clear fields of fire. Emergency supplies were packed and hidden. Most importantly, he had activated an old military emergency beacon, one that would send a coded message to any human military vessels within range. Jake woke to the sound of engines and his father's urgent whisper. "Jake, we need to move. Now." The boy rubbed his eyes, confused. Through the window, he could see Imperial soldiers marching down the colony's main street. They moved with mechanical precision, weapons ready, scanning each building as they passed. "Dad, what's happening?" Marcus knelt beside his son's bed, his voice calm but urgent. "Remember yesterday when your friend ZYX told you about the clearing protocols? They're happening now. The Empire is going to hurt people today, and we can't let them hurt you. Jake's eyes widened with understanding. Despite his young age, 3 years on a frontier colony had taught him that danger was always real. What do we do? We're going to play a game, Marcus said, forcing a smile. Remember the stories I used to tell you about hide and seek? Well, now we're going to play it for real. I need you to be very quiet and do exactly what I say. Can you be brave for me? Jake nodded, fear and determination warring in his young face. Marcus helped him dress quickly, then led him to the back of their home where he had cut a hole in the wall during the night. It opened onto a maintenance tunnel that ran beneath the colony. I'm going to get you to safety first, Marcus whispered. Then, Daddy has some work to do. They crawled through the tunnel system, Marcus navigating from memory of construction blueprints he had studied years ago. Behind them, they could hear the Empire soldiers beginning their systematic search. Doors were being kicked in. Families were being dragged from their homes. Some colonists were screaming. Others had fallen ominously silent. The tunnel opened into the colony's main storage facility, a massive underground complex where the miners kept their equipment. Marcus led Jake to a hidden alcove behind the power generators, a space invisible to most scanners. Jake, I need you to stay here and count to 10,000. That's about 3 hours. If I'm not back by then, you use this. Marcus pressed a small device into his son's hands. It's an emergency beacon. Press the red button, and it will call for help. Human help. But Dad, where are you going? Marcus pulled his son close, memorizing his face. I'm going to make sure the bad people can't hurt anyone else. But first, I'm going to make them very sorry they came to our home. Jake grabbed his father's shirt. Don't leave me, Dad. Please. I'll come back. Marcus promised, though they both knew it might be a lie. You're the most important thing in the universe to me, Jake. Everything I do today is to keep you safe. Remember that, no matter what happens. Marcus kissed his son's forehead and slipped back into the tunnels. Behind him, Jake began counting quietly, his voice barely a whisper in the darkness. Above ground, the Empire's clearing operation was proceeding with typical efficiency. Admiral Vextar supervised from his command vehicle as his troops methodically processed the colonists. The aliens were being separated from the humans. The humans were being separated from each other. Men, women, and children were loaded into different transport containers. Vextar's orders were simple. The alien species could be relocated to other worlds where they would serve the Empire in different capacities. The humans, however, were problematic. They had a disturbing tendency to resist authority and inspire rebellion in other species. The safest course was elimination, disguised as a tragic mining accident. The Empire had used this protocol dozens of times on frontier worlds. Sir, we're missing several colonists, reported Captain Thex, Vextar's second-in-command. The manifest shows 47 humans, but we've only collected 43. Continue the search, Vextar ordered. No one leaves this colony alive. That was when the killing began. Marcus moved through the tunnels like a ghost, emerging at carefully planned points to strike at isolated soldiers. His first targets were the communication operators, men stationed alone in vehicles while their units searched buildings. Marcus killed them silently with techniques learned in wars the Empire had never heard of. He took their equipment, their weapons, and, most importantly, their comm units. The Imperial soldiers began reporting problems. Squads would call for backup and receive no response. Orders would be transmitted but never acknowledged. Equipment would malfunction at critical moments. But these were professional soldiers, and they adapted quickly to the situation. Sir, we have a problem, Captain Thex reported to Admiral Vextar. Someone is interfering with our operations. We've lost contact with 4 perimeter teams. Vextar sneered. Probably colonists trying to hide. Double the patrols and accelerate the processing. I want this finished before nightfall. But Marcus was just getting started. He had spent years studying the Empire's military procedures, watching their soldiers during routine patrols, learning their weaknesses. Imperial troops were well-equipped and well-trained, but they relied heavily on their technology and overwhelming firepower. They weren't prepared for an enemy who struck from the shadows and disappeared before they could respond. Marcus sabotaged their vehicles, turning advanced hover tanks into immobile targets. He booby-trapped their supply depot, creating a spectacular explosion that could be seen from orbit. Most importantly, he began freeing the captured colonists. The human prisoners were being held in a temporary detention facility near the colony's main square. Marcus approached it like the military target it was, using every technique he had learned in 15 years of special operations. He disabled the guards with silent efficiency, then began releasing the captives. "Listen to me carefully," he whispered to the freed colonists. "I'm going to get you out of here, but you need to follow my instructions exactly. No talking, no unnecessary movement. We go single file through the route I show you." Among the prisoners was Dr. Sarah Kim, the colony's chief medical officer. She stared at Marcus in shock, recognizing him despite his transformation from quiet miner to deadly warrior. "Marcus? What are you doing? How are you doing this?" "Long story, document. Right now, I need you to help me get these people to safety." Dr. Kim nodded, understanding that explanations could wait. She helped organize the other colonists while Marcus led them through a carefully planned escape route. They moved through maintenance tunnels and emergency passages, paths Marcus had memorized during his 3 years of apparent civilian life. But as they neared the exit point, they encountered a problem. An Imperial patrol had discovered the tunnel entrance. Marcus could hear their voices echoing in the darkness ahead. "Everyone stop," Marcus whispered. "Doc, take the others back the way we came. There's an alternate route near the water processing plant." "What about you?" Marcus checked his weapon, a captured Imperial rifle that hummed with deadly energy. "I'm going to clear the path." The battle in the tunnels was brief, but vicious. Imperial soldiers had every advantage except one. They were fighting a man who had nothing left to lose. Marcus used the confined space to his advantage, forcing the enemy to come at him single file, where their numbers meant nothing. His movement was efficient, economical, deadly. Each shot found its target. Every action served a purpose. When the shooting stopped, 5 Imperial soldiers lay dead in the tunnel. Marcus was wounded, an energy burn across his left shoulder, but he was alive. More importantly, the colonists were safe. Dr. Kim tended his wound while the other prisoners escaped through the alternate route. "You're military," she said quietly. "Real military, not just colonial defense." Marcus corrected. "Now I'm just a father trying to protect his son." "Where is Jake?" Marcus pointed toward the storage complex. "Hidden, hopefully safe." "Marcus, there are too many of them. Even if you save some of us, they'll just call in reinforcements. This colony is lost." Marcus smiled grimly. "Maybe, but the Empire is about to learn something important. You don't threaten human children and walk away. Not ever." Above them, Admiral Vextar was beginning to realize he faced something unprecedented. His professional soldiers, equipped with advanced weapons and backed by orbital support, were being systematically destroyed by a single individual. Worse, the colonists were escaping. His perfect operation was becoming a disaster. "How many men have we lost?" he demanded. 17 confirmed dead, sir. 8 more missing. And we still haven't located the primary target." Vextar's face darkened. In his 30 years of military service, he had never encountered resistance like this. The colonists were supposed to be helpless civilians, not trained warriors. "What do we know about this individual?" "Nothing, sir. He's not using Imperial tactics, but he clearly has military training. Advanced training." Vextar made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his very short life. "If we can't capture him quickly, we'll force him to come to us. Bring me the human children we captured." "All of them?" Captain Thex hesitated. "Sir, the children weren't scheduled for processing until bring them to the main square. Now, this terrorist will surrender to save them, or he'll watch them die. Either way, our problem is solved." In the storage complex, Jake had stopped counting. He could hear explosions and gunfire echoing through the colony. He knew his father was fighting, probably dying, and there was nothing he could do to help. The 12-year-old boy pressed himself deeper into the shadows and tried not to cry. He didn't know that his father's war was just beginning, but that the Empire had just made the mistake that would seal their fate. They had threatened to harm human children in order to force a Marine surrender. Marcus was about to show them what happened when humans stopped playing by civilized rules. # the Galactic Empire killed a human boy, unaware his father was a U.S. Marine hashtag. Third part. The announcement echoed through the colony's emergency broadcast system. Admiral Vextar's voice, amplified by speakers throughout the settlement, carried a tone of cold authority. Attention terrorist. You have 1 hour to surrender yourself at the main square, or the human children in our custody will be executed. We have 12 of them, ages ranging from 6 to 14. Their deaths will be on your conscience. Marcus heard the transmission through a stolen comm unit. He was hidden in the colony's maintenance center, treating his wounds and preparing for what he knew would be his final assault. The threat to innocent children changed everything. He could no longer focus solely on guerrilla tactics and hidden run attacks. The Empire had forced his hand. Dr. Kim, who had insisted on staying with him despite his orders to evacuate with the other colonists, watched him clean his rifle with mechanical precision. You can't possibly save them all, she said quietly. There are still over 100 Imperial soldiers in the colony. Marcus didn't look up from his weapon. I don't need to save them all. I just need to kill enough of them that the rest remember why you don't threaten human children. This is suicide. Maybe, but those kids don't deserve to die because I couldn't stop this. Marcus set down his rifle and looked at her directly. Doc, I need you to do something for me. In the storage complex, Section 7, behind the main generators. My son Jake is hidden there. If I don't make it back, get him to the emergency beacon and call for help. Dr. Kim nodded, understanding the weight of what he was asking. What are you going to do? Marcus stood up, checking his equipment one final time. He had accumulated an impressive arsenal from the soldiers he had killed. Imperial energy weapons, explosive charges, and, most importantly, detailed intelligence on their positions and capabilities. I'm going to remind the galaxy why Marines exist. The main square of the colony had been transformed into an execution ground. The 12 human children stood in a line, hands bound, guarded by 20 heavily armed soldiers. Admiral Vextar waited behind them, confident that his hostage strategy would force the terrorist surrender. Among the children was ZYX, the young crystalline who had befriended Jake. His empathic abilities were broadcasting the terror and confusion of the human children around him, creating a feedback loop of fear that affected every sensitive being in the area. The Imperial soldiers, mostly non-empathic species, remained unaffected by the psychic distress. Captain Thex approached his admiral. Sir, we've completed the perimeter. If the terrorist approaches, we'll have clear fields of fire from 6 different positions. Good. This will be over soon. Either he surrenders and we can proceed with the liquidation, or he dies attempting a rescue. Either way, the colony will be processed on schedule. Vextar had made this calculation many times before. Humans were emotional creatures, prone to sacrificing themselves for others. It was a weakness the Empire had exploited across dozens of worlds. What Vextar didn't understand was that he had just provided Marcus with the greatest possible motivation to destroy him utterly. Marcus approached the square through the underground tunnel system, emerging in the basement of the colony's administrative building. The structure overlooked the main square, providing an elevated position with multiple escape routes. He had memorized every detail of the area during his years of seemingly peaceful civilian life. From his vantage point, Marcus could see the children clearly. Their faces were pale with terror, but they stood with the quiet courage that human children often displayed in impossible situations. The sight filled him with a rage so pure it was almost transcendent. These were not enemy combatants. They were innocent children whose only crime was being human in Imperial space. Marcus began his assault not with violence, but with psychological warfare. His voice echoed across the square, amplified by the same broadcast system Vextar had used. But instead of the Admiral's cold authority, Marcus spoke with the quiet confidence of a professional killer. Admiral Vextar, my name is Marcus Chun, Gunnery Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, Force Reconnaissance. Service number 2387 Alpha Niner. You are currently holding human children as hostages. This is unacceptable. The Imperial soldiers looked around nervously, unable to locate the source of the transmission. Vextar himself seemed momentarily off balance. The voice carried an authority he didn't recognize, a certainty that suggested the speaker was operating from a position of strength rather than desperation. You have threatened children under my protection, Marcus continued. According to the military codes I swore to uphold, This makes you an enemy combatant engaged in war crimes. I am authorized to use any force necessary to stop you. Vextar recovered his composure and activated his own comm system. Terrorist, you are in no position to make threats. Surrender now, or watch these children die. Marcus's response came not in words, but in action. The first explosion destroyed the Imperial command vehicle, killing 3 officers and eliminating their primary communications hub. The second explosion took out their weapons depot, sending secondary detonations rippling across the square. The third explosion destroyed their medical station, ensuring that wounded soldiers would receive no treatment. But Marcus was just beginning. Moving with the deadly precision of his special forces training, he began systematically eliminating the soldiers guarding the perimeter. His approach was silent and efficient. Sentries simply disappeared, their positions falling empty without any alarm being raised. By the time the Imperial forces realized they were being hunted, Marcus had already killed half their number. Status report. Vextar shouted into his comm unit. Sir, we've lost contact with perimeter teams Alpha through Delta. Sensors are showing multiple casualties, but we can't locate the source of the attacks. Vextar looked around the square, suddenly realizing that his overwhelming tactical advantage was evaporating. This wasn't supposed to happen. Colonial resistance usually involved desperate farmers with makeshift weapons, not professional military operations conducted by invisible enemies. Bring the children closer to my position, he ordered. If he wants them, he'll have to come through our main force. That was exactly what Marcus had been waiting for. The Imperial soldiers concentrated around the hostages, presenting a compact target that eliminated their mobility advantage. Marcus had studied their equipment and tactics for 3 years, watching their patrols and learning their weaknesses. Imperial doctrine relied on overwhelming firepower and technological superiority. They were unprepared for an enemy who could match their technology and exceed their training. Marcus struck from 3 directions simultaneously, using remotely detonated charges he had placed during his earlier reconnaissance. The explosions created chaos and confusion, allowing him to advance through the smoke and debris. His rifle spoke with mechanical precision, each shot ending a life with the efficiency that only came from years of combat experience. The children, trained by frontier life to respond quickly to danger, dropped flat to the ground as Marcus had hoped they would. This gave him clear fields of fire over their prone forms, allowing him to engage the guards without risking civilian casualties. In less than 3 minutes, the square fell silent except for the crackling of burning equipment and the quiet sobbing of terrified children. Marcus emerged from the smoke like an avenging spirit, his rifle covering the area as he moved to free the hostages. The children stared at him with a mixture of fear and hope, unsure whether their rescuer was human or something else entirely. It's okay, Marcus said softly, cutting their bonds with a combat knife. You're safe now. I'm going to get you out of here. But as he turned to lead them to safety, he found Admiral Vextar waiting for him. The Imperial officer had survived the assault, though blood streamed from multiple wounds. He held a particle pistol aimed directly at the children. Very impressive, Marine, Vextar said. But this ends now. Drop your weapon, or I will kill every child here. Marcus studied the alien admiral, noting his wounded condition and the slight tremor in his gun hand. Vextar was operating on determination and hatred now, his rational thinking clouded by rage and humiliation. You're not going to kill them, Marcus said quietly. I will if you don't surrender. No, you won't, because you're already dead, and you just don't know it yet. Vextar frowned, confused by the statement. That confusion cost him his life. Marcus moved with inhuman speed, covering the distance between them before the alien could react. His combat knife took Vextar in the throat, severing his vocal cords and preventing any final words. The Imperial Admiral collapsed, his weapon falling harmlessly to the ground. The children watched in stunned silence as Marcus helped them to their feet. In their young minds, he had transformed from the gentle miner they knew into something mythical, a protector who could appear from nowhere and destroy any threat. Is everyone okay? Marcus asked, checking each child for injuries. They nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. But young ZYX, the crystalline boy who had warned Jake about the clearing protocols, stepped forward. Mr. Marcus, Where is Jake? Marcus felt his heart clench. In all the fighting, in all his focus on saving these children, he had left his own son hidden and alone. He's safe. I'll take you to him. But even as he said the words, Marcus could hear the sound of approaching aircraft. Reinforcements from the Imperial fleet, drawn by the destruction of the ground forces. The real battle was just beginning. Marcus looked at the children around him, these innocent lives that had become his responsibility. Then, he looked at the approaching ships, vessels carrying hundreds of fresh soldiers who would show no mercy to human colonists. For the first time since the battle began, Marcus smiled. The Empire thought they were sending reinforcements to deal with a terrorist incident. They had no idea they were about to face a United States Marine who had nothing left to lose and every reason to fight. The children deserved to live. His son deserved to live. And Marcus was going to make sure that happened, no matter how many Imperial soldiers he had to kill. The war for Kepler 442b was far from over. In fact, it was just getting started. Hashtag the Galactic Empire killed a human boy. Unaware his father was a U.S. Marine. Hashtag fourth part, the Imperial reinforcements arrived in force. 3 troop carriers descended from orbit, their hulls gleaming with fresh armor and bristling with weapon systems. Each ship carried 50 elite soldiers from the Empire's 47th Fleet, troops specifically trained for suppressing colonial uprisings. Admiral Kethvar, Vexstar Superior, commanded the operation from his flagship in orbit. Marcus watched the ships land from his position in the colony's communication center, where he had taken the rescued children for temporary shelter. Through stolen surveillance feeds, he could see Imperial troops deploying with military precision, establishing perimeter controls, and setting up heavy weapons positions. "There are so many of them," whispered Sarah Mills, one of the older children. "How can you fight all of them?" Marcus checked his remaining ammunition and explosives. The truth was grim. He had perhaps enough supplies for 1 more engagement, maybe 2 if he was careful. Against 150 fresh troops with orbital support, his chances were minimal. But Marcus had learned something important during his years as a Force Recon Marine. Sometimes the mission wasn't about winning. Sometimes it was about making the enemy pay such a terrible price for their victory that they would think twice before attempting it again. "I'm not going to fight all of them," Marcus told the children. "I'm going to lead them away from you. When I give the signal, you take the tunnel system to the storage complex where Jake is hidden. Dr. Kim will be there to help you." Young ZYX stepped forward, his crystalline features shimmering with distress. "Mr. Marcus, my father is with the Imperial fleet. Maybe I can contact him, make them understand." "No, son. Your father is a good person, but the Empire isn't interested in understanding. They're here to kill everyone who isn't useful to them." Marcus knelt down to meet the boy's eyes. "But I need you to do something important. Can you use your empathic abilities to keep the other children calm? They're going to see some scary things, and they'll need someone strong to help them." ZYX nodded solemnly, accepting the responsibility with the gravity that crystalline children often displayed. Marcus activated the colony's emergency broadcast system one final time. His message went out not just to the Imperial forces, but to every ship within range of the communication array. "This is Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Chun, United States Marine Corps, broadcasting on all frequencies. The Galactic Empire has attacked a peaceful colony and murdered innocent civilians, including children. Any human vessels receiving this transmission are advised that we are under attack and require immediate assistance." From orbit, Admiral Kethvar listened to the transmission with growing anger. His ground forces had suffered unacceptable casualties, and now this terrorist was broadcasting propaganda to the entire sector. "Cut off that transmission," he ordered his communications officer. "Sir, he's using the colony's main array. We would have to destroy it from orbit. Then do so. Prepare the particle cannons." But before the admiral could give the firing order, his tactical officer interrupted with urgency. "Sir, we're detecting hyperspace signatures. Multiple contacts approaching fast." On the surface, Marcus felt a surge of hope as his stolen scanners detected the approaching ships. His emergency beacon had reached someone after all. But as the vessels dropped out of hyperspace, his heart sank. These weren't human ships. They were hegemony cruisers, additional Imperial reinforcements summoned by some automated distress signal. The odds had just become impossible. Marcus gathered the children around him for what he knew would be their final conversation. Listen to me carefully. In about 10 minutes, I'm going to leave this building and draw the soldiers away from you. When the shooting starts, you run through the tunnels to Section 7 of the storage complex. Don't look back. Don't try to help me. Just get to Jake and Dr. Kim. What about you? Asked Sarah Mills. Marcus smiled, though there was no happiness in it. I'm going to buy you time to escape. That's what Marines do. We hold the line so other people can live. He handed his emergency beacon to ZYX. If human ships do come, use this to signal them. Tell them what happened here. Make sure they know the Empire kills children. The crystalline boy took the device with trembling hands. Will we see you again? Marcus didn't answer directly. Instead, he checked his weapons one final time and moved toward the exit. Remember, when the shooting starts, you run. Don't stop for anything. Outside, the Imperial forces had completed their deployment. Captain Rexhan, the ground commander, had positioned his troops in a classic suppression formation. Heavy weapons covered all known exit points from the communication center. Snipers had clear fields of fire from elevated positions. Assault teams waited in reserve to exploit any tactical opening. It was a textbook operation against a single opponent, but Captain Rexhan had studied the tactical reports from the earlier engagement. This wasn't an ordinary colonial insurgent. This was a professional soldier who had already demonstrated lethal efficiency against Imperial forces. All units maintain firing discipline, Rexhan ordered. The target is highly dangerous and tactically sophisticated. No heroics. When he shows himself, we overwhelm him with coordinated fire. Marcus emerged from the communication center with the casual confidence of a man taking a morning walk. He carried his rifle openly, making no attempt at concealment. To the Imperial soldiers watching through their scopes, it looked like surrender or madness. It was neither. Marcus had chosen his exit point carefully. The communication center stood at the intersection of 4 major colony streets, providing multiple avenues of approach and retreat. More importantly, it was adjacent to the colony's main power station, where he had spent the night placing his remaining explosives. Target acquired, reported Sniper Team Alpha. Clear shot, requesting permission to engage. Captain Rexhan studied the human through his tactical display. Something felt wrong about this. Professional soldiers didn't expose themselves unnecessarily, especially when facing overwhelming odds. Negative. Hold position. This may be a diversion. Rexhan was correct, but it was too late. Marcus had already achieved his primary objective, simply by drawing their attention. The children were moving through the tunnel system, guided by ZYX's empathic abilities and their own survival instincts. Marcus began walking toward the main Imperial position, his rifle held at the ready, but not aimed at any specific target. His movement was deliberate, purposeful, but somehow non-threatening. It was a psychological technique designed to create uncertainty in enemy forces. Sir, he's approaching our perimeter, reported Team Leader Bravo. Instructions? Captain Rexhan felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Every instinct told him to open fire, but something about the human's behavior suggested a deeper strategy. Professional soldiers didn't advance against impossible odds without a plan. All units maintain position, but prepare for immediate engagement. Watch for secondary threats. Marcus stopped 50 meters from the Imperial perimeter, well within range of their weapons, but positioned precisely where he wanted to be. He activated his comm unit and spoke with the same comm authority he had used throughout the engagement. Captain Rexhan, you are in command of the ground forces, correct? The Imperial officer was startled to hear his name. How do you know who I am? I've been monitoring your communications. You seem like a professional soldier, unlike your predecessor. I have a proposition for you. You're in no position to make propositions, terrorist. Marcus smiled. Actually, I am. You see, I've had 3 hours to prepare for your arrival. During that time, I've placed approximately 40 pounds of military-grade explosives throughout this colony's infrastructure. The power station behind me, the atmospheric processors to your left, the main water treatment facility to your right. Rexhan felt his tactical situation shift dramatically. If the human was telling the truth, this was no longer a simple suppression operation. What do you want? Safe passage off-world for the human colonists who survive your initial operation. In exchange, I surrender myself to Imperial justice. And if we refuse? Marcus's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Then, this entire colony becomes a crater, taking your ground forces with it. I die, you die, and your admiral explains to Imperial Command why he lost 200 soldiers to capture a mining settlement. From orbit, Admiral Kethvar listened to the exchange with growing fury. This terrorist was dictating terms to the Empire, treating Imperial forces like equals in some kind of negotiation. All units, ignore the terrorist demands. Eliminate him immediately. But Captain Rexon found himself in an impossible position. His tactical sensors confirmed the presence of explosive devices throughout the colony. The human's positioning suggested he could detonate them before any sniper could take the shot. Worse, the professional competence the terrorist had already demonstrated made his threats credible. "Sir, I recommend we consider the terms," Rexon reported to his admiral. "The tactical situation is not favorable for an immediate assault." "I don't care about your tactical situation, Captain. I care about Imperial authority. No colonial insurgent dictates terms to the Empire." That was when Marcus made his final move. "Actually, Admiral, I think you'll find that I do." He raised a small detonator device, clearly visible to all Imperial forces. "You have 30 seconds to begin evacuating your ground troops, or I detonate everything at once." In the storage complex, Jake heard the sound of running feet approaching through the tunnels. His heart leaped with hope, thinking his father had finally returned. Instead, he saw a group of children emerging from the darkness, led by Dr. Kim and a young alien he recognized as ZYX. "Where's my dad?" Jake asked immediately. Dr. Kim's expression told him everything he needed to know. "He's making sure we all get away safely." Through the colony's emergency speakers, they could hear the final negotiation between Marcus and the Imperial forces. The children listened in silence as the man who had saved them bargained his life for their freedom. Jake started toward the tunnel entrance. "I have to help him." "Dr. Kim caught his arm. "Your father gave specific orders. We're supposed to get you to safety, but he needs help." "No, Jake. He needs us to survive. That's the mission he's fighting for." Above ground, the 30-second deadline approached with Imperial forces frozen in tactical paralysis. Captain Rexon knew that any aggressive action would trigger the explosives. Admiral Kethvar demanded immediate assault despite the consequences. And Marcus Chun stood calmly in the center of it all, a human father who had become something the Empire had never encountered before. A Marine with nothing left to lose except the lives of innocent children. The countdown reached 0. Hashtag the Galactic Empire killed a human boy. Unaware his father with a U.S. Marine hashtag fifth part. The explosion that followed shook the planet. Marcus had detonated only the power station behind him, a controlled demonstration that sent debris raining down on the Imperial forces while leaving their positions intact. The message was clear. He could have killed them all, but chose restraint. "For now. The next one won't be a warning shot," Marcus announced through the comm system, his voice carrying across the stunned battlefield. "You have 10 minutes to begin evacuation procedures for the surviving colonists, or I turn this entire settlement into a memory." Captain Rexon stared at the smoking crater where the power station had been. The blast had been precisely calculated to demonstrate capability without causing maximum casualties. This level of tactical sophistication suggested military training far beyond anything he had encountered in colonial uprisings. "Sir, we need to comply with his demands," Rexon reported to Admiral Kethvar. "The explosive yield confirms he has the capability to destroy the entire colony." From orbit, the Admiral's response was predictably furious. "I don't care if he has antimatter bombs. The Empire does not negotiate with terrorists. Admiral, with respect, we're not dealing with a terrorist. We're dealing with a professional soldier who has outmaneuvered us at every turn. If we don't evacuate the ground forces, we'll lose every man." But Kethvar's pride had been wounded beyond rational thought. 2 of his admirals were dead, his ground forces were neutralized, and a single human was dictating terms to the Imperial Navy. Such humiliation could not be tolerated. "Orbital bombardment," he ordered. "Eliminate the entire colony. Target everything." Rexon felt his blood turn cold. "Sir, that will kill our own troops." "Acceptable losses. The Empire's reputation is more important than individual soldiers." In the storage complex, Jake heard his father's voice over the communication system one last time. "Jake, if you're listening, I want you to know that I love you more than all the stars in the galaxy. Take care of the other children, and remember what I taught you about being brave." Dr. Kim realized what was happening as the orbital bombardment began. Energy beams lanced down from space, turning sections of the colony into molten slag. The Imperial Admiral had chosen to destroy everything rather than accept defeat. "The tunnels," she shouted to the children. "We have to get deeper underground." But Jake stood frozen, listening to his father's final message. "This is Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Chun, broadcasting on all frequencies. The Galactic Empire has murdered innocent civilians and is now conducting orbital bombardment of their own forces. Any human vessels receiving this transmission, the coordinates are the transmission cut off as another orbital strike obliterated the communication center." That was when the miracle happened. The hyperspace signatures had been detected hours ago, but their approach had been masked by the larger Imperial vessels. Now, as the bombardment intensified, 6 ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They were human ships, responding to Marcus's original distress call. But these weren't just any human vessels. They were United States Space Force ships, led by the heavy cruiser UES Guadalcanal. Aboard the flagship, Admiral Sarah Chun, Marcus's sister, watched the destruction of Kepler 442b with growing rage. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple distress signals from the colony," reported her communications officer. The source identifies himself as Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Chun, Force Recon. Admiral Chun felt her heart stop. Her brother had been listed as dead for 3 years, killed in a transport accident. But the voice on the recordings was unmistakably his. "Battle stations," she ordered. "All ship, combat formation. We're going to war." The Imperial fleet suddenly found itself facing an opponent they had never encountered, the United States Space Force in full combat configuration. Human military doctrine was unlike anything in Imperial experience. Where alien species relied on overwhelming firepower or technological advantages, humans had developed something entirely different. They had learned to fight dirty. The opening salvo came without warning. Human ships used tactics the Empire considered dishonorable: stealth approaches, coordinated strikes against specific subsystems, and targeting of command vessels rather than general destruction. The UES Guadalcanal's first shot took out Admiral Kethvar's flagship, eliminating Imperial command authority in a single devastating attack. "This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United States Space Force." Her voice echoed across all frequencies. "The Galactic Empire has committed acts of war against human civilians and is hereby ordered to cease all hostile operations. You have 60 seconds to comply before we demonstrate why threatening human children is the last mistake you'll ever make." On the surface, Marcus heard his sister's voice through the static of damaged communication equipment. For the first time since the battle began, he allowed himself to hope that Jake might actually survive this nightmare. The Imperial forces attempted to continue their bombardment, but human space superiority quickly established itself. The Empire's ships were larger and more heavily armed, but human vessels were faster, more maneuverable, and commanded by officers who had learned warfare in conflicts the Empire couldn't imagine. Within 30 minutes, the Imperial fleet was destroyed or retreating. The orbital bombardment ceased, leaving scattered fires burning across the colony, but the underground areas intact. Marcus emerged from the ruins of the communication center, wounded but alive. His explosive charges had been targeted by the orbital strikes, but his own position had been protected by the colony's emergency shelter system. He made his way toward the storage complex, driven by the desperate need to find his son. Jake met him halfway, bursting from the tunnel system with tears streaming down his face. Father and son collided in an embrace that seemed to exclude the rest of the universe. "I thought you were dead." Jake sobbed against his father's chest. "I promised I'd come back," Marcus whispered. "Marines keep their promises." Dr. Kim emerged with the other surviving children, all of them staring at Marcus with something approaching awe. In their young minds, he had become mythical, a protector who could face impossible odds and somehow survive. But Zwyx, the young crystalline, approached Marcus with a question that would haunt human-alien relations for years to come. "Mr. Marcus, why didn't the Empire know humans could fight like this?" Marcus looked at the alien child, thinking of all the conflicts the Empire had missed, all the wars they had never witnessed. They had encountered humanity during a brief period of peace and assumed that was their natural state. They had no idea that humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare. Because they never bothered to ask, Marcus replied. They saw farmers and miners and thought we were helpless. They forgot that every human carries the genes of warriors who conquered their own world. Admiral Sarah Chen's flagship landed in the ruins of the colony's main square, disgorging medical teams and relief supplies. The Admiral herself approached Marcus with a mixture of relief and disbelief. 3 years, she said simply. 3 years I thought you were dead. I was dead, Marcus replied. Marcus Chun, the construction worker, died in a transport crash. But when they threatened Jake, Marcus Chun, the Marine, came back to life. The aftermath of the Battle of Kepler, 442b, sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Empire had lost 2 fleets and hundreds of soldiers to a single human father defending his child. More importantly, they had revealed their willingness to commit genocide against civilian populations, an act that unified previously neutral species against imperial expansion. But the most significant consequence was the message it sent to every human colony in imperial space. They were not helpless. They were not alone. And when pushed too far, they could call upon reserves of violence that would make their enemies remember why humanity had never been successfully conquered. The children who survived the battle carried that message with them as they grew up. They became ambassadors, telling their story to anyone who would listen. They spoke of a man who had faced impossible odds to protect innocent lives and who had shown the galaxy what happened when you threaten human children. Jake Chun grew up to become a Marine like his father, serving with the same unit that had once included Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Chun. He carried his father's rifle and his father's determination, but also something new. The knowledge that sometimes a single person could change the course of history by refusing to accept the unacceptable. ZYX became a diplomat, working to prevent the kind of misunderstandings that had led to the massacre at Kepler, 442b. His empathic abilities, combined with his childhood memories of human courage, made him uniquely qualified to bridge the gap between species that had learned to fear each other. And Marcus Chin himself? He returned to active duty with the United States Space Force, but he kept a picture of the rescued children on his desk, not as a reminder of victory, but as a reminder of what he was fighting for. The Empire had taught him something important. The galaxy was full of people who would hurt children if no one stopped them. Marcus Chun was very good at stopping people. The Galactic Empire still existed, but it no longer expanded into human space. They had learned, at terrible cost, that humanity's apparent peacefulness was not weakness. It was choice. And when that choice was taken away, when innocent children were threatened, humans became something the Empire had never encountered before. They became monsters in defense of those they loved. The galaxy remembered the lesson of Kepler, 442b. You could conquer human worlds. You could defeat human fleets. But if you harmed human children, you would face something that no amount of technology or numbers could overcome. You would face a parent with nothing left to lose and all the skills necessary to make you pay for your arrogance. The Empire learned to leave human families alone. They learned too late, but they learned.